On his birthday, my son said he wished to never see me again. I discovered an incredible, life-altering truth: I had become a ghost in my own home. Jack's heart shattered at those words. It echoed around the small, cluttered kitchen, the smell of burnt pancakes lingering in the air, mingling with the weight of David's bitter words. 15. How could this be happening? He had sacrificed everything, toiled under the fluorescent lights of the factory, his hands rough and raw, just to ensure his son had a roof over his head and food on the table. Silence hung heavy between them, thick and choking. Jack could see the resentment etched into David's features, the way his son clenched his jaw and avoided eye contact. Jack tried to smile, tried to recall the laughter that used to ring through their home. The memories felt dim now, swallowed by the crushing realization that financial stability had taken precedence over emotional connection. "David, please," his voice cracked, desperation spilling out. Jack fought hard against the rising tide of sadness. When had their relationship turned into this? The dinner table, once a gathering place of joy, now sat barren, filled only with frustration and unspoken words. It felt as if there was an ocean of emotion between them, too vast to cross. Days passed since that devastating birthday. The factory buzzed around him, a constant reminder of his reality, but Jack couldn't focus. The community he once found comfort in felt distant and cold. And then came the news that jolted him: a crisis. The local youth center, a refuge for kids like David, was facing closure. Jack felt a spark ignite. Maybe this was the opportunity he needed, a chance to mend what was broken. "Hey, neighbors," Jack called one evening, standing in front of a small group gathered around their barbecues. "What if we held a charity event? Raise some money to save the youth center?" To his surprise, their faces lit up. They rallied together, fuels of hope and belonging igniting between them. Jack felt alive, energized by this newfound purpose. As they met daily to plan, the community began to feel like family again. But with every moment spent together, Jack couldn't escape his past mistakes. The more he strived to connect with David, the more his son pulled away. Brick by brick, they were building a wall of misunderstanding. Jack tried recounting his own childhood stories, tales of his father's sacrifices, hoping to bring down those bricks. Yet David would respond with silence, or worse, a roll of his eyes. Finally, the day of the charity event arrived, filled with excitement. Tables were lined with homemade treats, laughter bubbled in air, but Jack felt a tightening in his chest, his pulse quickening. He took to the makeshift stage, heart pounding against his ribcage. "This isn't just about raising money," he began, feeling the weight of every pair of eyes on him. "This is about connecting, about love, about opening up." But when he glanced at David, hoping to see understanding, he only found him turning away, shoulders tense and face set in stone. Jack's heart plummeted, raw disappointment surfacing. Was it too late? Would he ever truly reach his son, before making a real connection became impossible? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Feeling his chest tighten and eyes welling, Jack stood alone again as laughter drifted around him, a haunting reminder of what had been lost. The air sucked from his lungs. Could he find a way to connect with David? Or were they destined to remain strangers in the same house, two hearts forever? Yearning for something just out of reach? The event wound down, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the community. Voices mingled in the air like sweet melodies, but Jack felt the cold weight of reality pressing in. To everyone else, this was a success. They had raised a good amount of money, laughter echoed, and hope filled hearts. Yet for him, it felt hollow. David slipped away into the shadows, his figure retreating from the joy around them. Jack's breath hitched. He wanted to follow, to reach out, but fear gripped him. What would he say? How could he bridge the gap that felt insurmountable? His friends, neighbors, and even strangers patted him on the back, proud and buoyant, but Jack's spirit remained anchored in worry. He caught snippets of conversation, all celebrating his efforts, and he forced a smile, but inside, he was imploding. "Jack, you really pulled this together." Someone praised, and he nodded absently. But all he could think about was the lost connection with his son. With the crowd beginning to disperse, he steeled himself and started walking toward the field where he last saw David. The grass, still damp from a recent rain, squished under his worn shoes. Jack's heart raced. The night was cool, but sweat trickled down his back, not from heat but from the gnawing anxiety swelling within. He found David sitting on a swing, the rusted chains creaking softly. The boy's eyes focused on the ground, lost in thought. Jack approached slowly, not wanting to startle him. "Hey, buddy," he said, his voice softer than he'd intended. "Can we talk?" David shrugged, still staring off into the distance. Jack took a deep breath. "It was a good turnout today, right? We raised enough to save the center." Silence. Jack felt another pang of disappointment. "I know this isn't easy for us. But Dad, you just don't get it," David interrupted, turning to meet his father's gaze. His voice was strained, filled with a mix of frustration and sadness. "You think throwing money at problems will make things better. But that's not what I need. I don't care about the center. What matters is you're never around when I need you." Each word struck like a blow to Jack's chest. He stumbled back slightly, the truth of it hitting him hard. "I've been trying. I'm trying to be better, to be there for you. I thought this would help us." David stood, the swing squeaking as he pushed it away with force. "Help us? You know what? This," he gestured towards the event, "isn't fixing anything. You were so focused on this stupid charity, you forgot about me. It's always about work and money, Dad." Jack's heart sank deeper. "That's not true. I do all of this for you. I want to provide for you. But you're not here." David's voice cracked, revealing layers of pent-up hurt. Jack felt the weight of his son's pain almost as if it were a physical entity, wrapping around him tightly. "You don't see me. You don't even know who I am anymore." The two stood frozen, the air between them charged with the electricity of unresolved emotions. Jack felt his own chest tighten with realization. All his efforts, while noble, had not touched the tender spots of his son's heart. "David," he began, but the boy was already walking away, shoulders slumped, leaving Jack standing in the fading twilight, feeling more alone than ever. As he watched David disappear around the corner of the field, Jack felt tears sting his eyes. In that moment of heartbreak, a spark of determination ignited within him. It was time to change, really change. What would it take to truly connect with his son? Jack vowed to find out, no matter how deep the journey would be. In the days to come, he knew he would have to dig deeper than any charity event or paycheck. There had to be a way for redemption, for rebuilding the bridge they had both abandoned. The question lingered like the last rays of sun fading from the sky: could he reconnect with David before it was too late? Suddenly, it all felt like a race against time. How could he find the path back to his son? Jack woke the next morning to a world that felt heavier than before. The sunlight poured through the window, but it did little to warm the cold pit forming in his stomach. Today was David's birthday. It should have been a day for celebration, yet it loomed like a storm cloud over him. He had plans, but the thought of facing his son again after their confrontation made his throat dry. As he moved through the house, he caught sight of the half-deflated balloons that still clung to the ceiling from a previous party long forgotten. They hung like echoes of joy that now felt mocking. Jack sighed. The last birthday he'd attended was a chaotic blend of noise, laughter, and cheerful chaos, yet David had drifted into the background that day, almost as if he was an afterthought in the merry gathering. Jack picked up a small box wrapped in colorful paper, his fingers trembling slightly as he tried to remember the last birthday gift that had brought a genuine smile to David's face. He wondered if this would be another failed attempt to connect, a futile bid that would only fall flat as he already feared. He drove over to the park, the place they had shared so many memories. The air felt crisp, yet the unease churned in his gut. Jack parked, glancing around the playground where children played under the sun, their laughter mingling with the sweet scent of fresh-cut grass. Before heading to the usual picnic spot, he spotted David sitting alone on a bench, head down, fingers tapping rhythmically against his thighs. Jack's heart skipped. This was it. "Hey, buddy," Jack said, taking a cautious step closer. David didn't look up. "Happy birthday." He tried to infuse warmth into the words. The silence in response felt heavy, almost suffocating. "Thanks," David muttered, still refusing to meet his father's gaze. "I got you something." Jack unfolded the gift carefully, revealing a brand new baseball glove exactly like the one he'd owned as a kid, the one that had seen countless summer afternoons. "I thought we could go and play later." "Just like before?" I missed that." David shifted slightly, still not making eye contact. "You want to play ball now? After everything?" "I want to make things right," Jack said, his voice cracking. "I want to be there for you, David. I need you to know that." Finally, David looked up. His eyes were dark pools of hurt mixed with something else, cautious hope, maybe? "Why do you care now? Where have you been all this time?" Jack's heart sank at the words. "I've been lost, I guess. Wrapped in work, thinking I was doing the right thing. But I see now that I've missed out on the most important part of being your dad. I want to change that." The openness in Jack's heart felt raw and exposed under David's gaze. Would his son even consider forgiving him? Or was this attempt just more empty words? "I don't want a glove, Dad," David said finally, the hurt returning. "I want a dad who's there, someone who cares enough to really show up. I feel like I can't remember the last time you were with me. Each word sliced through Jack like a knife. He recognized the truth in David's plea, a truth he had ignored for so long. It was more than about gifts, it was about being present, being vulnerable with one another. Jack took a deep breath. "You're right. I haven't been there, and I'm sorry for that. Can we start again? Just us?" David's posture softened slightly, but the tension hadn't completely lifted. "I don't know if you can just fix it with a glove and some words." Jack nodded. "You're right. It's going to take time. But I'm willing to put in the effort, even if that means facing the things that scare me." As the words hung in the air, David seemed to consider them, searching his father's face for sincerity. Jack held his breath, hoping for a sign that his son would let him back in. "Okay," David finally said, hesitantly. "But it's not going to be easy." "I wouldn't want it any other way," Jack replied, a small flicker of hope igniting within him. Just then, a group of kids raced past them, laughter ringing out like joyous bells through the air. Jack saw David watching them, a flicker of curiosity crossing his face. A chance. Jack felt it. In that moment, under the bright sky, a thought struck him: what if they could not only reconnect but redefine their relationship? What if they could build something new from the broken pieces? As Jack sat beside David, the sun warmed them both. Perhaps the path ahead wouldn't be straightforward, but he felt something shift within him, a silent promise that things could be different. "Maybe we could try some baseball," Jack began, hoping that the small gesture could be the first step. But before he could finish, David's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and took a deep breath. "It's my friends. They want to play at the field." "Dad, do you mind if I?" Jack felt anxiety flare, but he wanted to support David. "Go ahead. It's your day." As David stood to leave, a thought struck Jack. With David already halfway down the path, he called after him. "Wait. I might want to come watch, just to be there." David paused and turned back, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "Yeah, if you want to. Just don't be late." Jack felt a wave of warmth wash over him. A wish to keep moving toward a shared future, one step at a time. Could they really navigate their way through the wreckage and find solid ground together? Would this birthday be the start of something new, or merely another chance lost in silence? As he watched David slip away, a mixture of hope and wariness filled Jack's heart, venturing into the unknown once again. Jack watched David stride away, his heart racing as a jumble of emotions swirled within him. The weight of fear clawed at his insides, but alongside it was a newfound determination. Perhaps this wasn't just a birthday for David, it was a chance for both of them to reclaim parts of their lives they had nearly lost to time. As he made his way to the field, Jack replayed their conversation in his head. David's words echoed like an old song that wouldn't fade away. He couldn't just offer a glove and expect trust to magically return. But what if he could turn this day into something meaningful? Something that would last beyond just a moment? When Jack arrived at the baseball field, he was struck by the atmosphere. The sun cast long shadows through the trees, and the sound of bat meeting ball filled the air like a familiar melody. Kids ran and laughed, their enthusiasm infectious even from a distance. He spotted David among them. He was standing with a group of friends, laughter spilling from his lips as he tossed a ball back and forth. Jack took a seat on the bleachers, uncertain of how to bridge the gap. He felt like an outsider looking in. Watching David was both a joy and a pain. Memories flooded in those warm afternoons spent throwing baseballs, sharing dreams, and, most importantly, just being there. He took out his phone, the gift he had planned for David still tucked away in his pocket. Should he have brought it over? Would it matter? With every passing moment, the doubt crept back in, but Jack pushed it aside. He had to trust this journey of reconnection required small steps, even if they felt awkward. As the game continued, Jack caught snippets of conversation from the kids below. "Come on, throw it a little faster," one yelled, and David responded, "I got this." It launched Jack into a flashback of similar days when David would practice his pitch. The pride he felt would radiate through him, and then, in a moment that made Jack's heart leap, David glanced up from the game and caught his father's gaze. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, followed by a hesitant smile. It was small but enough to send warmth crashing through Jack. The game concluded, and as kids scattered off in different directions, Jack stood up, feeling a rush of courage. He made his way down the bleachers, heart pounding. "David!" he called. David turned, his expression shifting from surprise to something more guarded as he approached. "Hey, you actually came." Jack nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I wanted to see. I thought maybe we could talk, about everything." David shrugged, the tension still evident in his posture. "I don't know what there is to say. I'm busy." "I get it. But I want to try," Jack said, feeling the weight of the moment. "Can we have a moment? Just us?" A flicker of conflict played across David's eyes, and for a second, Jack wondered if he would agree. Then, slowly, he said, "Okay. But I don't want to talk about the past." "Then let us start with the present," Jack suggested, hoping to soothe the edge in David's voice. "What if we practice some throws together? Just like we used to?" David hesitated, a mixture of uncertainty and curiosity in his expression. "You really want to?" "More than anything," Jack said, his voice earnest. After a long pause, David relented. "Fine. But if you throw like a dad, I'm leaving." Jack couldn't help but chuckle, the tension lifting slightly. Together, they walked toward the pitch. Jack's heart surged with a mix of relief and hope. If reclaiming moments could happen over something as simple as baseball, maybe there was still so much more they could build upon. The sun shone brightly as they took their positions, David with the ball in hand and Jack ready to catch. The first throw was a little shaky, but when Jack caught it, he felt a spark within him. "Not bad, Dad," David said, the corner of his mouth twitching up in a familiar grin. "Just warming up," Jack replied, exhilaration bubbling inside him. Maybe this was the start of their clarity, the kind that could reclaim a lost relationship. As they tossed the ball back and forth, a sense of normalcy returned. Laughter began to interrupt the silence that had weighed heavily between them, bridging the gap with little moments of joy. But as the practice continued, Jack felt a looming question at the back of his mind: what if this was only the beginning? What hurdles still lay ahead, waiting to be faced? And just as the thought settled in, The sound of a nearby argument interrupted their lightheartedness. A group of older boys were shouting at one another. The tension snapped back into the air, and Jack's heart raced with a mix of dread and determination. How would this impact David now? "Let us go see what that's about," Jack said, feeling protective instinct take over. David looked at him, uncertainty flickering across his face again. "You sure?" "Yeah. If they need help, we should be there, right?" And as they approached the chaos, a new challenge awaited them, demanding their focus and strength in ways neither could predict. Would they step forward together, or would this moment of potential slip away, like so many before? Jack steeled himself as he and David approached the ruckus. The older boys, a mix of their pride and bravado, were circling one another, voices raised in anger. Jack felt his pulse quicken, every instinct telling him to intervene. "Just stay back, Dad," David murmured, his eyes flicking to the commotion. "They're just messing around." "It's fine." But Jack's heart pounded with concern. "It doesn't look fine, David. They might say something that could hurt someone." David hesitated, clearly torn. Jack could sense it in the way his shoulders tightened. The space that had just begun to feel comfortable was suddenly charged with uncertainty. "Look, I know they're older and can handle themselves, but what if it crosses a line? What if it escalates?" Jack pushed gently, hoping to reach the part of David that still cared about doing the right thing. As they drew closer, the shouts became clearer. Accusations flew about who double-crossed who in a game, words growing sharper. Jack noticed one kid, a larger boy named Jake, his face scrunched in anger as he stepped closer to another, a younger boy named Ethan. David's expression darkened. "Come on, we shouldn't get involved. Let us just back off." But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something important. "David, what do you think we should do?" To his surprise, David shifted. The defensive walls around him began to crack, revealing a flicker of concern. Maybe we should try to calm them down." With a little surge of hope, Jack nodded. "Right." Together. Side by side, they pressed through the small crowd, Jack's heart racing not just with fear but exhilaration. This was a chance for both of them, a moment to bond through a shared challenge. Stepping into the fray, Jack called out, "Hey! Let us all take a breath." The boys turned, some surprised, others still brimming with hostility. Jack could feel the energy shifting, their attention pulled away from the argument standing at the forefront. David glanced at Jack, a flicker of uncertainty dancing behind his eyes, the familiar smile from earlier felt worn thin. "Back off, old man," Jake snapped, trying to reclaim dominance over the situation, but David found his voice. "Wait. It's just a game. We don't need to fight." His voice, though shaky, cut through the tension. The unexpected authority in his words hit Jack like a wave. For a moment, time froze. Jack felt the weight of David's tension beside him, the way he stood up taller, the flash of determination igniting in his eyes. Something within Jack swelled with pride. Jake sneered but paused, uncertainty creeping in. "Why do you care? It's not your problem." Jack stepped forward, a defensive instinct kicking in. "It is when it affects everyone here. We're a community. We can find a better way to settle this." The crowd began to murmur, glancing at one another, the anger gradually ebbing away as the realization washed over them. That's when Ethan spoke up, voice shaky but resolute. "Yeah, it's not worth it, really." The air began to shift, and the fight fizzled. Jake's bravado cracked just a bit. "Fine." He scoffed and shoved his hands in his pockets. "Whatever." As the older boys started to drift apart, Jack turned to David, their gazes locking for a beat. It was as if they had just crossed an invisible line together weaving a thread of trust back and forth. Jack felt alive with a sense of purpose. "You handled that like a pro," Jack said, the corner of his mouth lifting into a proud smile. "Yeah, well," David shrugged, trying to maintain a facade of coolness but then broke into a grin that reminded Jack of the childhood days. "I had a good teacher." In that moment, something shifted. They had faced a challenge together, and while it wasn't a full reconciliation, it was undeniably a step in the right direction. But as the adrenaline of the moment waned, Jack noticed a figure approach out of the corner of his eye. A man in a dark coat strode in, his expression unreadable. An unsettling feeling fluttered in Jack's stomach. "David," the man called, his voice low and firm. "We need to talk." The air thickened with tension, and Jack's heart sank as he exchanged a worried glance with David. Who was this man, and what did he want? "David?" Jack whispered, anxiety creeping into his voice. David's eyes widened, recognition flickering within them. No, not now, and as questions filled Jack's mind, he felt the ground beneath them shift once more. Would this moment of connection slip back into darkness, or was there still hope to fight for? David's fingers curled tightly around the hem of his shirt, anxiety tangling his expression. Jack's heart raced, a whirlwind of thoughts flooding his mind. The man in the dark coat walked closer, each step resonating with an ominous echo that seemed to drown out everything else. "Who is that?" Jack whispered, his voice laced with worry. "I don't know." David snapped, his voice easily caught between fear and defiance. But Jack could see it, the way David's lips pressed together and his knuckles turned white. This was more than just a stranger, it was something deep-rooted. "Hey, it's going to be okay," Jack reassured him, though the tremor in his own voice betrayed him. "We can still figure this out." The man stopped a few feet from them, a dark silhouette against the fading daylight, the tension thickening like fog. "David," he said again, the name hanging in the air like an unwelcome reminder. Jack's protective instincts kicked in. He stepped forward, positioning himself between the man and David. "What do you want?" he demanded, anger simmering beneath his skin. "I just need to talk to him," the man replied, his voice calm yet unsettling. "It's not what you think." David's shoulders sagged, the definition of worry etched into his features. "I don't want to speak to you," he yelled, his voice trembling. "Not now. Not here." Jack's pulse quickened. He was unsure of who this man was, but it was clear that he brought with him a storm of emotion David was not ready to face. Jack turned briefly to David, searching for some sign of hope, something to grasp onto. "Listen, David. You're not alone. I'm right here with you." But David was shaking his head, tears brimming in his eyes. Just leave," he shouted at the man, a sense of desperation creeping into his voice. Jack could see the vulnerability emerging, the welcome facade of bravado slipping away. The man shifted, his expression softening slightly. "David, please, you have to understand." "Understand what?" David interrupted, stepping forward defiantly, stepping around Jack. "Understand that you abandoned me? That you didn't take care?" Jack flinched at the raw pain in David's voice. He desperately wanted to grab David, to pull him back to safety, but this was a moment David needed to face alone, even if it terrified Jack. The man in the coat sighed, an exhalation thick with regret. "I've made mistakes, but I want to make it right." "Make it right?" David scoffed, his voice trembling. "You can't just waltz in here and expect everything's okay. You don't get to decide that." Jack's heart ached for David, he could feel the weight of his hurt. "David," he cautioned softly, stepping closer again, ready to pull him back if things got out of hand. But David wouldn't back down. "You think I'm just going to forgive you? You think I'm going to just forget everything?" As the confrontation escalated, Jack felt the ground shifting beneath his feet again. He had entered a completely new battlefield, one filled with scars and wounds that had festered over the years. "David, listen to me," the man urged, stepping forward again, vulnerability now creeping into his own tone. "This is hard for me too, but we need to talk, we need to face it. I can't walk away again." Silence fell, thick and suffocating, as David stared, hurt battling with the desire to understand. Jack looked from one to the other, uncertain how long this moment would last and whether it would end in agony or hope. He noticed other kids hanging back, curiosity mingling with the lingering tension. Faces of concern emerged, filling the atmosphere with unspoken support. David, Jack said, feeling the heat of the moment swell. You don't have to do this alone. Just take your time. All at once, the world felt both hopeless and yearning for resolution, an ache echoing in Jack's chest. As David's expression faltered, uncertainty flashing through his eyes, Jack realized the weight of what lay ahead. Both of them were standing on the precipice, ready to sway one way or the other. The question loomed heavy: would this moment bring the healing they all desperately needed, or plunge them into deeper conflict? Jack held his breath, the air thick with anticipation. What decision would David make? And would it either reunite or separate them for good? David's gaze flickered between the man in the coat and Jack, torn between the past and an uncertain future. The air was electric, thick with unsaid words and unexpressed emotions. Jack felt the weight of David's struggle like a lead ball in his stomach. He wanted to scream, to shout for the world to stop until David found his way. The man took a tentative step closer, as if the distance between them was a chasm too great to bridge. David, please, listen to me. I know what I did was wrong. I was scared. I didn't know how to handle everything. Scared? David shot back, the fire in his words igniting the tension around them. You think that makes it okay? You think that excuses 10 years of silence? His voice cracked, a mixture of anger and despair flooding through each syllable. Jack's heart ached. He wanted to reach out to David, to hold him, to tell him it was okay to feel all that rage. But this wasn't Jack's battle to fight, it was David's. He didn't want to act too soon, to push David away at a moment that could change his life for the better. The man in the coat shook his head, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world bore down on him. No, it doesn't. Nothing excuses it. But I'm here now. I want to make it right, if you'll let me. It starts with talking. David's face contorted, emotions battling within. Jack could see the tears welling up, shining like beads in the fading sunlight. How could a moment feel so infinitely long? It was like standing on a tightrope, swaying back and forth, unsure whether to leap or retreat. Why should I believe you? David finally managed, his voice breaking with each word. You chose to leave. Jack so desperately wanted to shout that he understood how betrayal could echo through a lifetime, and how forgiveness wasn't easy, but sometimes it was necessary to move on. He could feel the expectant gazes of their peers, a small audience for a play that felt too raw, too real. Because, the man replied, his tone echoing heartbreak, I made a promise to myself. I promised I would not let fear keep me from you again. I love you, David. I'm your father. A gasp rippled through the small group of onlookers, as if the word hung heavy in the air. Jack's breath caught in his throat, stunned by this revelation. It was a truth years in the making, and David's silent fury collided with the pulse of longing beneath. Father? David spat, the word laced with incredulity. You call yourself that after abandoning me? You have no idea what it's been like. For years, I've had to take care of myself while you were. I know I was wrong. The man interrupted, his voice cracking under the weight of remorse. I wish I could take it back. I don't want to hear any more excuses. David's voice rose, a tempest of fury and hurt spilling over. He turned slightly, looking toward Jack, searching for a lifeline. What do I even say to him? How am I supposed to believe anything he says? Jack stepped forward, the protective urge somehow merging with the need to support David's feelings. You don't have to say anything right now. Just breathe. You're not alone in this. Just know you have options. The man's eyes softened, pleading. David, if you would just give me a chance, I want to be here for you. It's not about me anymore. It's about making things right for you. And in that moment, Jack felt the air thicken, time stretching like taffy, as David wrestled with the choice before him. Would he step into the unknown, allowing a new narrative to unfold from the wreckage of their past? As David looked back at the man, uncertainty danced in his eyes, hope battled against bitterness. Jack felt his heart race once more, desperate to see his friend find peace, yet terrified of where this path might lead. What would David choose? Would he reach out or slam the door shut on their past forever? The answer lingered in the air, and with every breath, Jack felt the weight of their future just within reach, like a tender flicker of light amid profound darkness. David's heart thudded like a drum, the sound echoing in his ears as he locked eyes with the man before him. It felt surreal, standing there with a stranger who claimed to hold a relationship so fundamental, a relationship David had craved for so long, yet feared to reclaim. He could sense the breath of those around him, their anticipation merging with his own turbulence. "Just breathe," Jack whispered again, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. For a moment, time seemed to stop. David caught a glimpse of the man's face, the lines etched deeply, the shadow of regret heavy in his stare. It was a face familiar yet alien, a chaotic mix of emotion that made David's stomach churn. Do I get to ask questions?" David's voice wavered, fighting through the knot in his throat. "Do I even want to hear the answers?" "Absolutely. You can ask me anything," the man replied, his own voice strained, a fragile thread of hope hanging between them. "Why now?" The question slipped out, sharp and bitter. "Why after all these years? Where were you for my birthday? Did my life not matter enough for you to show up then?" Jack winced at David's words. He wished he could somehow cushion them, make them softer, but that wasn't possible now. This was David's truth, raw and aching. "I was afraid," the man confessed, his admission hanging heavily in the air. "Life changed too quickly, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I was terrified of being a failure again. But the truth is, I'd been a failure to you by not being here." The weight of those words seemed to fill the chasm between them, heavy and poignant. David felt the tears that had been threatening to spill over finally start to flow. The bitterness swirling within him was now tangled with sorrow and a longing he had grown accustomed to silencing. "And what if I don't want you back?" David challenged, anger mingling with the vulnerability creeping into his voice. "Then I'll accept that," the man said, the desperation thinly veiling his acceptance. "But I need you to know I'm here, and I will spend every second trying to prove I'm worthy of being called your father." The crowd remained silent, catching breath between whispered exchanges, their expressions morphing from curiosity to empathy, as if they were holding their own collective heartbeats in solidarity with David. "Maybe you should be thought of that a long time ago," David snapped, the fire reigniting just as quickly. "You don't get to walk into my life and expect me to just forgive you. Is that what you thought would happen?" "I know," the man said, his voice breaking. "But all I ask is for a chance. Just one conversation. I can't change the past, but maybe we can build the future together. If you'll let me." David's chest ached, the conflicting desires tearing him in two. Would he be brave enough to peel back the layers of hurt and betrayal to discover who this man truly was? Or was this an illusion, another broken promise waiting to shatter? Jack stepped closer, his heart racing as he watched David's expression shift from rage to reflection. "You don't have to decide everything right now, David," he urged softly. "Take your time. It's okay to be honest, whatever that looks like." David's breath hitching, he felt a rush of emotions culminating into a single thought that felt like a seed taking root. The idea of a tomorrow unfurling with possibilities flickered at the edge of his mind, taunting him. What if he chose to listen? What kind of man could stand before him, scarred but willing to change? Would he find redemption in this unpredictable reunion? As David stood on that precipice, caught between regret and hope, he realized that the choice wasn't just about a father, this was about him. His healing could start now if he dared to take the leap. With a shaky breath, he lifted his voice. "If we're going to talk, where do we begin?" Jack felt his heart pound as he realized this was only the beginning of a journey neither of them could have anticipated. Would David be able to take that painful first step, or would the shadows of their past haunt them forever? The silence stretched, heavy with the weight of unspoken words. David felt his pulse quicken. This was the moment they had both been avoiding, the moment that could either mend or entrench their wounds deeper. Let us start with what happened," David said, his voice steadier now as he focused on the man before him. "Why weren't you there when I needed you?" The man's expression shifted, a flicker of shame crossing his features. "I was in a dark place," he admitted, his voice thickening with emotion. I didn't know how to face you. I thought it would be better for you if I stayed away if I didn't drag you down. Better? David echoed, disbelief flooding his words. How is disappearing better? You missed everything. Every birthday, every milestone, every time I needed a father's guidance. Each word fell like stones in the fragile space between them, each carrying years of hurt. I know, the man answered, his eyes glistening. And I hate myself for it. It's my greatest regret. This man was in pain too, David realized, a lesson in empathy wrapped within the layers of anger he had clung to. It didn't forgive the absence, but it offered a glimpse into the wreckage left behind. What was it like for you, growing up without a father? The man asked, the concern evident in his tone. David hesitated. This was territory he had avoided for so long, a wilderness of emotions crowded with loneliness and unanswered questions. I spent years wondering why I wasn't enough, David replied, feeling the heat of unshed tears prick his eyes. I thought if I was better, smarter or stronger you would come back. But you never did. The man reached out as if compelled by an invisible force and hesitated, his hand hovering just above the table. I'm sorry, David. I know words are just words, but I want to show you how much I regret my decisions. I want to be in your life again. A flicker of hope battled the shadows in David's heart. He could either keep pushing this man away or risk allowing some light to seep into the darkness. But trusting wouldn't be easy. What does that even mean? He challenged, wary but intrigued. You think all I need is a few phone calls? An apology? You need to prove yourself more than that. I know it's a long road, the man said, lowering his gaze. But I'm willing to walk it. I'll be here for however long it takes. David could sense the sincerity in his father's tone, a promise wrapped in the weight of reality. But could he risk it all again? Each heartbeat echoed doubt, mixing with a desire for connection so deep it ached. Okay, let us talk about what that looks like. I have rules, boundaries that will matter, David said, deciding maybe beginning was the best step forward, however shaky. Whatever you need, I will respect, the man replied, his eyes unwavering now. What matters is you. As they began to sketch the outline of a relationship, David's breath eased ever so slightly. Hope began to crack the walls of his heart, but the uncertainty gnawed at him. What if this wasn't enough? What if he opened that door only to be left standing alone again? The crowd started to murmur softly, the gravity of the moment resonating with those around them. Jack's encouraging smile lingered, a reminder of the supportive presence he provided. David stole a glance at his friend, a bubbling sense of determination strengthening within him. I'll give you this chance, David finally said, the words tumbling out, raw yet unsteady. But you have to understand I won't just forgive you. This will take time. With those words spoken, a new chapter lay before them, one laden with hope and trepidation. As they began to untangle the threads of their past and weave a potential future, David couldn't shake the question that nagged at the back of his mind, was it possible for a heart to truly mend after being torn apart? And as he watched his father's face transform from regret to cautious optimism, David realized they were standing at the edge of something new. Would they leap together, or would the ghosts of their other's choices haunt them yet again? The school gymnasium buzzed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Colorful streamers swayed from the ceiling, and the smell of popcorn filled the air. David sat still at a table, watching the families around him, while the sounds of laughter and chatter washed over him like waves. His heart raced, not from the festivities but from the weight of choices made just hours earlier. He had given his father a chance, a flicker of possibility after years of absence. Jack stood at the edge of the crowd, a beacon of support, but David felt the heavy burden of uncertainty on his shoulders. Was he brave or foolish to open this door? Is everything okay? Jack's voice broke through his thoughts, a gentle touch on David's shoulder. David nodded slowly, not trusting his own voice just yet. Memory surged, the pain, the longing, the chaotic mix of emotions that led to this moment. They shared a knowing silence, both of them wrestling with feelings unspoken. The time for connection felt primordial, a branch reaching out from the tumultuous sea of the past. And then, the moment came. A spotlight dimmed over the gym, and the principal rose to speak, announcing the community's achievements and the renewed hopes for the youth center they had fought to save. David's heart beat faster. What did it mean to be part of this? Jack squeezed his shoulder again, and David turned to see his father's expression filled with pride and solidarity. David took a deep breath. "Dad," he finally said, voice steady but soft. "I want to talk about what the new beginning looks like." His words hung in the air, and Jack nodded slowly, his expression growing serious. "Absolutely. I'm ready for whatever it takes," Jack replied, sincerity flooding his voice. The night swelled around them, laughter enveloping their world even as they faced the uncertainty ahead. As moments unfolded like petals in the spring, David found himself breaking the silence, revealing small pieces of his heart. "I don't want fancy things or empty promises." He paused, a mixture of fear and hope swirling in his chest. "I just want someone I can count on." And Jack listened, really listened, ready to understand. "You can count on me, David. No more distractions. Just you and me." Their eyes locked, and for the first time in years, David felt a flicker of warmth begin to thaw the ice that had encased his heart. Children laughed and screamed in joy just outside the gym doors as the night continued to unfold, and in that space, the two began to forge their path. They spoke about what David needed: a dad who showed up, who listened, and walked beside him through not just the good times but through the storms. In that blending of fears and hopes, a new understanding emerged. They agreed to meet regularly, to plan outings, to create spaces of connection, even if the road ahead was still rocky. As the celebration continued, David knew that it wouldn't be easy. Trust had to be rebuilt, piece by piece. But he felt a spark, a possibility, illuminating a new path to walk upon together. Hours slipped by, and as David watched families joyfully embrace, he felt an upsurge of warmth. Everything around him felt like a testament to life's spontaneous beauty, sometimes harsh, other times incredible, but always worth experiencing together. "Are you ready for the next step, buddy?" Jack asked, and David nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Yeah. I think I am." With just those words spoken between them, both father and son found their footing on shaky ground, willing to unearth the love that was waiting to unfurl. The tumultuous road ahead would be marked with ups and downs, but they shared a vital knowledge: they were in it together now, and as the evening drew to a close, surrounded by the warmth of their community, Jack felt tears prick his eyes, not from sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of hope. They were not just rebuilding a relationship, they were igniting a connection that would chart a new course, a chance for David to reclaim his narrative and for Jack to embrace the father he had always yearned to be. The first real step towards something beautiful, something lasting, and both recognized it took courage. Their eyes met once more, a shared understanding passed between them, and in that moment, both decided they would be brave together. The future whispered of promise, families and community intertwined, hearts finally opening. Jack turned to David, a radiant smile illuminating his face. "Let us tackle this, together." "Together," David echoed, feeling the warmth radiate through him like a sunbeam breaking the early morning chill. And with that, they stepped into their shared future, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Now is the moment. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our journey forward. Tell us in the comments your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share and support our community.